How do you take a crispy golden spring roll and make it even more epic? Well, you stuff it full of sweet, sticky pulled pork, of course. These are my pulled pork spring rolls. Heaven. Let's chit-chat pork first of all. So we're going to be using a pork belly for this one, but you could also use pork shoulder, basically any kind of pork cut that's going to get nice and soft and tender and juicy. So this is my pork belly that I've got today. Look, not all pork belly pieces are created equal when you're out there shopping for them. You really want to get a decent hunk of meat in there, at least 2 little layers of fat, but not too much. I mean, you know me guys, I love fat, but just a little bit here is good. Okay, so pork belly, what I want to do here is take the skin off. This is not a crispy skin pork belly recipe. I have some of those on my channel if you want one of those, but that's not what we're doing today. We're going to take the skin off. So what you need to do is get your knife in here underneath the skin, just on top of the fat, and then just keep cutting through in here for a few more centimeters along, and then flip the pork over. And now you kind of use that little piece of skin that you've cut as a handle while you angle your knife kind of about 45 degrees down, and then just sort of pull the skin, and that pulling action or the wiggling action will do all the work for you. Just hold the knife steady and there you go. Skin comes off. Let's get going on this lovely slab of pork belly itself. Now, what we need here is a little spice rub. Now, very simple. I'm going here with some Chinese 5-spice. And if you're interested to know what's in Chinese 5-spice, or you'd like to make your own, you can check out my video on how to do that on my channel. Now, I also need some salt. Just give that a mix. And then you want to sprinkle this really generously all over your pork belly. Sort of give it a little massage in there. Now that pork belly just goes out onto a tray lined with some foil, and I've got a baking rack in there as well. The whole idea with that actually is that, I might do a bit of explaining about that. The whole idea is that the foil's going to stop you from getting a whole bunch of mess on the bottom of your baking tray, one, because who likes to do washing up? And the baking rack's going to allow enough space so that the air in the oven can kind of go all the way around that pork belly without the bottom sort of searing on the bottom of the baking tray. So there you go. There's method to the madness always. Pork goes on. Now here's where we need to exercise a little bit of patience. Your pork belly needs to go into the oven, really low temperature, for about 3 hours, or until everything is beautifully soft and tender. All right, so pork is smelling amazing. That 5-spice smell, and then that like roasted porky smell, so good. All right, let's get to the pulled pork stage, because like that's really fun too. Get this out onto a chopping board. Now I like to get in here with my knife first of all. Now just check that out. I mean, look at how soft that pork is. Oh, this is the kind of thing that makes cooking so joyful. Look at that. Oh, so soft and tender. Wow. Okay, and like as if you couldn't resist to try it right now. Holy smokes. I mean, even if you weren't going to turn this into a spring roll, which, there is a risk that once you start eating this, you won't get to the spring roll stage, but even just that on its own, amazing. 5-spice, the salty, everything is perfect. Okay, let's get this into a bowl before I eat it all. Now you want to get in here with some forks and just shred everything up. All right, so that is looking like one very delightful bowl of pulled pork there, and now I'm gonna add in my hoisin sauce. So we want this to kind of be sort of juicy hoisin kind of mixture. I don't want too much sauce because then we're gonna make our spring rolls soggy, but I want enough sauce so that each little bite is like juicy and saucy and yummy. Anyway, let's get this in here. Now mix that hoisin sauce through really well, get everything beautifully coated. And that is our filling done. So let's get on to the spring roll making itself. Now what you're gonna need here are some spring roll wrappers, or in some parts of the world you call them egg rolls, so egg roll wrappers. These guys are usually in the freezer section of the supermarket, and this is what they look like. And what you wanna do is just peel off one of these. Now I like to keep my spring roll wrappers covered all the time, just like a damp tea towel, because they can dry out really easily. Now spring roll wrapper goes down. I like to have like a corner facing me. And now just make a little pile of your pork here and kind of push it around so that you're like starting with a little rectangular shape, and then pull the bottom up. And what you want to do is pull it over and then kind of pull it back a little to tighten up that little cylinder. Roll a couple of times and then fold the sides in. And the important part here is try to be expelling as much air as possible, because air inside your spring roll is what will make the spring roll explode when it hits the hot oil, which would be a disaster for everyone. Now keep rolling, and just going to get a little bit of water just to seal that last little edge. Now one more little tip here, if you find that your spring roll wrapper is quite dry and dipping your finger in the water doesn't actually get a really good seal here, what you need to do is just mix together a little paste, just equal parts plain flour and water, and you can use that as your spring roll glue. But these ones are pretty good, they're sealing with water, so I'm going to leave them. There we go, onto our tray, and let's make spring rolls. So at this point, you can do one of two things. You can cover this up with some cling film, get it into the freezer, and keep them there for whenever you have a spring roll emergency. You can just fry them straight from frozen, or you can just get on and cook them like I'm going to do right now. So you need some hot oil, and to check if the temperature is hot enough, just pop a wooden spoon into there. And then once you can see all of those furious little bubbles, then you know that the oil is hot enough. So now gently slide your spring rolls into the hot oil, and then just add a few at a time. With a sort of pan about this size, I'm going to add in about 6, but you don't want to overcrowd them, because then your oil temperature will drop, and that is when you get soggy spring rolls, and no one wants that kind of tragedy. Now our filling is obviously already cooked, so all we're waiting to do here is get that spring roll wrapper pastry nice and golden and crispy. So just a few minutes here. So these are looking really good. Look at that colour. Oh. And you just want to drain these on some paper towel. So these are like volcanic hot when they first come out of the fryer, so please don't bite into one straight away. Let them drain and cool down a little bit on that paper towel, and then you can pile them up to your heart's content. So I'm just going to get them out here. Now you can serve this with a dipping sauce or not. Sometimes I like to go with a bit of chili sauce, sometimes some extra hoisin, but let's have a look at what's going on inside one of these guys. Now just check out that juicy pork in there. Yay, look at that. Oh, let me have a look. That flavour is so beautifully intense. It's so porky, and then you get that kind of like sweet hoisin, 5-spice flavour. And that pork is so soft and juicy. I mean, wow. Pulled pork, spring rolls, who would have thought? Well, I thought. That's why I made them. Heaven.